always kill each other, and and they will always remain backwards as long as they kill each other. But that's the nature of these Muslims. What can we do? And that type of thing.
Because Europeans do kind of sophisticated
acts
of barbarism, which is different.
And the typical, but among them, and he is definitely not anti-Muhammad Abdul Wahhab. He actually thinks of him as a great person. He says, he was a very simple-minded person and a very, and basically he was bringing back true Islam, because Islam, although it turns out that this author is actually quite a devout Christian, he says, Islam had been corrupted by all these innovations of the Sufis and so on, and so Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab wanted to restore true Islam. And of course, what puts you in a position to decide what true Islam is? But all this is the ironies of history. But anyway, so whether true or not, I don't know, because I have I'll be if you remind me, I'll be happy to send you the text. Actually, in one of my...
You have the document.
I have the actual copy of it was published. And I have and it's been out of print for a long time, and there's been quite a bit of money to prevent it from being republished and so on. So I fished for it until I got an actual copy of the first published edition of the diaries. So there is no question that he makes this claim. The question is whether what he says is true or not. And you will actually find a cite to it in there's a volume called Progressive, actually
Muslim,
Progressive Muslim, but also there's a journal that UCLA Law School publishes called Journal. It's a Journal of Islamic Law, and in an article that I published in that journal around the same time that Progressive Muslims comes out, I give the biographical details of this officer and his diary, but it's in the footnotes. And now thinking back, I should have put it in the text, but I don't know why I've put it buried it in the footnotes. I guess because the academic part is they say, well, I need corroboration, and as long as, and this is of course something that is vehemently denied by all Wahhabi authorities, and is considered remarkably offensive and so on. So, in any case, but the point though is, well, how do we then understand that among those that the Wahhabis consider to be heretics, at the time they refrained from attacking Rashid Rida, obviously, but today, and shortly after, try to mention Rashid Rida in any Wahhabi gathering, Muhammad Abdu is attacked as a heretic, Rashid Rida is attacked as a heretic, but even more, all the masters of this mini reformation, this return to the roots, like Shawkani and Kandahlawi and Shawaliullah and so on, are all branded heretics. Mm-hmm. So how? But another piece that we have to add is to ask, okay, so theoretically the Wahhabis opened up the door of ijtihad. Where is that ijtihad? What have we seen come out that constitutes creative, innovative, legal thinking about anything? The only innovative or new material that has come out is oriented towards what we've talked about is also, as a matter of ibadat, it's oriented towards ritualistic practice. And is any of it new? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that it undermines all of the subtle contextual work done by jurists over cumulative centuries of commentaries and contextual application of traditions. And no, in the sense that there indeed is ultimately what is being preached is an imitation of some historically idealized construct or another. So let me rephrase this or put it again, is that you are invited to ijtihad. But where does this invitation take you? Does it take you to any new pastures, to use the expression, right? Does it take you to any new grounds? Does it take you to any new insights? Does it take you to any new understandings? The answer is invariably no, 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 because it takes you back to a very confined construct of an idealized, very particular and very idealized time in history. It sort of takes you back, and it's the act of ijtihad, or the so-called act of ijtihad, is that it takes you and plumps you in a very confined space, time and place, and time and space, and demands that you, now having been put there, that all creative acts now cease. So the creative, the ijtihad part, is used actually in the deconstruction of all contextuality and all contingencies that have been attached to, in other words, the interpretive tradition that have been attached to these historical reports. Historical reports are basically someone said so, right? But someone said so, and is in itself doesn't really tell you other than someone said so. You know, now there's all types of questions as to someone said so. So what is the juristic tradition about through the centuries? Well, it is through all types of investigations about this someone said so, and all types of applications. Now, blind taqlid would say that you do not go beyond these prior investigations or prior applications. A true ijtihad would say that no, you consult these prior attempts of comprehending this someone said so, and all the attempts of application, but then leap to a new contribution. And this is why it's called ijtihad, because it must involve juhd, right? It's hardship, striving. So if someone asks you, if you come and tell me, how many times do Muslims have to pray? And I say 5 times a day. Is that an ijtihad?
No.
No, right?
Didn't take any juhud.
No juhud in it. There's nothing new, and so on. Now, a question: is this a fatwa?
No.
No, there's no. A fatwa is an opinion. Okay, there is no. I am simply reporting on it. It might have had the position of a fatwa centuries ago if there was disagreement over the matter. But actually the 5 prayers, that you won't find that it's a matter of fatwa, because there is no disagreement about, the only disagreement about the 5 prayers is that you find is in how they're actually performed, and whether they're prayed 5 times a day or over 3 times a day. So whether you do the 5 prayers 3 times a day or 5 times a day. But and to the extent that it is a matter of controversy, is the 5 times a day or 3 times a day, giving you an opinion constitutes a fatwa. The difference between a fatwa and a hukm is a binding legal judgment. A fatwa is an opinion which it's binding or not depending on the evidence and depending on your intentions. So if you sincerely believe that you are married to X, or you sincerely believe that you've divorced your wife, for instance, and you go to a jurist and the jurist says, well, my fatwa is that you're still married, but you, in your conscience, truly believe that you've divorced your wife, no amount of fatwa will change that accountability before God. Now, remarkably, this truth of intent and the inability of a fatwa to give you absolution is critical to Islamic theology and Islamic law throughout. But even more, according to Usulis, even hukm doesn't give you an absolution. Hukm gives you a temporal judgment. So, for instance, the Prophet's tradition that it's a famous report where two people have a dispute. Both of them present their case. The Prophet rules in favor of one, and so and the other person, after this case is settled, comes to the Prophet and says, Nabiullah, I want to tell you something. This man is more eloquent than me. He knows how to speak. I don't. I'm a simple man. But I swear by God that what I said was the truth, and that this man lied, and basically he deceived you. And the Prophet's response is, people, what I tell you comes from God, obey. What comes from me, then if and it's the report is quite explicit. What comes from me, then know that it absolves you of nothing. So if I judge in favor of a person, and this person knows that this judgment is an error, let him return the right to who it belongs, because the fact that they've deceived me doesn't mean they deceived God in the hereafter, and they're still responsible. So if the hukm of the Prophet doesn't change, you stole this, if you true confrontation, if there was true taqwa, if there was true transparency with yourself, if you had true peace, you would know that you stole this property. You know you're not you're not entitled to this money. You know that this is not your effort, or this is not your right. Even the hukm of the Prophet cannot change that accountability. It might issue a judgment that's binding on this earth as a matter of law and order, but it doesn't change the relationship that you have with God. Now, this is well established in Islamic jurisprudence, and it never changes. But the Usulis went beyond in saying that, okay, let's hypothetically take a case where a woman I'll even take a more complex case, not just an intent, but school of thought. Okay, so a woman who follows the Hanafi school of thought, and a man who follows the Shafi'i school of thought, and she is a believing Hanafi, he is a believing Shafi'i, and her husband tells her, this is again hypothetical, right? Her husband tells her jokingly, "I divorce you." She says, "By God, I don't believe I am your wife," right? So they go to court, and the judge, for whatever reason, rules that no, your marriage is not dissolved. Okay. According to the Usulis, they said this woman has an obligation, as long as she believes she is not married to this man, she has an obligation to defy the judge's ruling. That as a matter of conscience, she cannot just pretend that the judge's ruling has changed, unless she, inside of herself, she believes that this is still her husband. Now, other schools have said, well, a judge, it doesn't change the truth of things, but a judgment acts as justification in the final day. So that if you acted, relying upon the judgment, you acted like this is your husband, that, in the final day, you have a legal excuse. It's like ikrah, it's like acting through coercion, or acting out of darura, out of necessity. It doesn't change the hurma, it doesn't change the reality of whether something is allowed or not, but it changes accountability for it in the hereafter as well on this earth. The Usuli said, no, it doesn't change accountability in hereafter, it only changes it on this earth. But a fatwa is an even a more tenuous position, because no one says it changes, and by its nature, a fatwa must be an opinion on a matter of dispute. That's what you are giving the fatwa about, right? Because if that means you make a contribution, not that you decide the matter, you opinionize about a matter. Right?
How if there is no dispute, but the fatwa is resulted? I mean, is it?
Well, the fatwa resolves it only if people accept the fatwa. So if that's why in application of Islamic law, it used to be in litigations, fatwa, or if they acted like expert opinions, both sides would go get a fatwa from counsel, juristic counsel, in their favor, and they present it to the judge, right? And so this person would go get a fatwa from Zahabi, this person would go get a fatwa from I don't know what, and they would present to the judge, and then the judge might follow the fatwa, might not, might side with one against other, might not accept it. It was literally like expert opinion. Now, if you get, a fatwa and you read it and you say, yeah, that's actually the truth, I believe this. Okay, then then the controversy has ended, because you've accepted its authority, its evidence, its adillah, and you said that is the position. Now here, of course, between you and God, God keeps saying repeatedly that in the hereafter, يحكموا فيما كنتم فيه تختلفون, that God will rule as to all the things that you used to disagree about. So, God knows whether your position is a result of stubbornness, whether your position is a result of obstinacy, whether your position is a result of ignorance, whether it's your lack of due diligence, all the things that a divinity can see through, but temporality cannot. And so your role as a human being, your constant struggle is to purify yourself sufficiently so that you do not put yourself in the hereafter in a position of accountability because you were too ignorant or too stupid or too obstinate or too arrogant or too, to realize your mistake. It's sort of going in the hereafter and God telling you, you were too arrogant to submit. That's not an excuse. You can't say, oh well, okay, so that then cool. I have that absolves me. So we know that. So this is the notion of absolution and fatwa, and in Islamic theology. Okay, so what truly gives you absolution? Here again, all the theological schools, save a very narrow, the narrow position of the Khawarij, and their predecessors, the Wahhabis, is that it is the purity of your niyyah, purity of your intent. That is your it's an absolute. God's salvation is an act of grace from God. As the Quran keeps saying again and again, that God basically, if God would judge you according to what you do, no one would get anywhere. But it is out of the mercy of God that but earning it, your engagement is in purification. It's like the notion of fitna, right? If tatantu dhahaba wal fidda, I've tested the gold and silver. How do you test them? You purify them, right? So you are if tatantu nafs, meaning I'm testing myself to purify myself so that I can be and ultimately it's not be gold, but it's to be luminous, to be light. That is the sort of the Islamic theological image, that the more pure, the more clean, the more. Now, remarkably though, the Wahhabi quote unquote ijtihad, act of ijtihad, doesn't look to intent or light or purification or all of that. It looks ultimately to whether you imitate in practice the quote unquote the sunnah of the Prophet and the companions. Okay, let's take our break because of the film, and then we'll continue after the break.
That's interesting. Do you know off the top of your head the verse that you're referring to at gold and silver? Where, or like what chapter at least maybe that what comes from?
You mean that افتتنته الذهب والفضة? No, that's not in the Quran.
Oh, it's
that's افتتنته الذهب والفضة. That's you find this expression quite often in theological works. You can actually look under fatna. Look under fatna in Lisan al-Arab. And you will find in Lisan al-Arab, he tells you
Lisan al-Arab? No.
Lisan al-Arab. Lisan al-Arab. By Ibn Munzir. Now the alternative is look in Lane's dictionary from Arabic to English under fitna, and you'll find, if my memory serves me right, Lane mentions this expression and it's used in theology and law.
It's just a common expression.
It's an expression taken from
the Prophet.
It's actually a paraphrase of a hadith from the Prophet.
Okay.
There are actually more than one hadith. It's where the Prophet says something to the fact that God tests you and purifies you like a goldsmith purifies gold.
Yeah, it's in the Psalms also an expression like that.
Ah,
Yeah,
really?
that God is like the smith that, and it's kind of alchemical. That's why I was interested in it.
Very interesting.
Because
didn't know
I
it was
have, yeah, because I have a friend who would be very interested in that kind of imagery.
Oh, you
Anything
can.
with gold or